fui de viaje a París y no me mudo ni borracho. Estuve en verano en Miami y no me mudo ni borracho. Yo ya he recorrido el mundo, no me mudo ni borracho. Collano, Corraleo, Teguise, Hermoso, La Graciosa, El Área, Pasacorte, Corillo, todo el mundo. Señores, un chance. Hago lo que quiero, duermo por el día y de noche parranda. Que yo siento cuidado de todos los míos.
Ahora sí. Buenos días a todos y todas. Vamos a empezar, pero en primer lugar, gracias por estar aquí. La verdad es que es todo un honor para mí poder estar en este espacio en el marco de la Global. Nos encontramos en un momento clave y esto es el resumen, creo, de este fin de semana. Un momento en el que la política no puede simplemente contestar, no puede simplemente reaccionar, sino que necesitamos que sea el progresismo el que marque el rumbo y hacerlo desde los valores que nos definen, los de la democracia, la igualdad y la justicia social. Este espacio que hoy compartimos no es casual. Este espacio es el reflejo de una generación que no se resiste y que quiere influir y que lo quiere hacer desde el lado correcto de la historia.
And this is what we are going to talk about today here with this panel. We're going to discuss, and above all, we're going to build collective answers to global problems that are having an impact on people's daily lives in our cities and in our neighborhoods. And in order to have that discussion, we have a very high-level panel of young people who live every day trying to make real these values. Aranzazu is the first woman to be at the helm of the JSE, Juventudes Socialistas de España. Thank you. Very good morning to you all. It's a great pleasure to be here. I don't want. I will be brief because I think all the people present here are the real actors and actresses of this. And this meeting with the progressive youth throughout the world, not just to exchange ideas, but also to generate new horizons in which hope and dreams are our flag. And we need to stop resisting and start building and talking about hope. And it's a historical moment in history in which we are not necessarily feel comfortable. It is a time in which we need to be brave, to show courage. And there are three people here that are really showing that courage in the media, in the social networks, in the public space, and which means that they are the subject of hate, of attacks, and it means that when you try to have an impact from the right side of history has never ever been easy, but today more than ever it is worth trying. It is worth doing it because of what we want is to achieve peace and defend men and women and children who are innocent and still murdered in all these conflicts and wars and genocides. And it is worth because democracy is the only way out of these conflicts, because we cannot surrender to live in a world in which hate is king. I refuse to not to do something. I refuse to just watch. I refuse to tell them that they are conservative when they are fascist. I refuse to respect the authority of genocides and war tyrants, and I refuse to make hate the flag of the world. And this is why I want to thank you really from the bottom of my heart for being here, but not just for being here, but also from your daily work. But this fear and hate and hatred that the far right is trying to impose on us is just a strategy to make us into slaves. And we don't want to be slaves. We want to be free. We want to have a dignity as a generation of young people. And let me end by thanking you again for your presence here today, for your daily struggle, fight for the rights, for the human rights in all different spaces, in the public spaces, in the let me thank Sarah, the work that she does every day and what she has to endure just because she is a woman. Being a woman in the public space, being a woman with a voice, being a woman with media power is something that the right and the far right that is not comfortable with. This voice, they think that us women are just a part of the stunts, and we are not political subjects. And I am very happy to see that somebody as Sarah is really making these people uncomfortable and making us feel that politics is also communicating, that it is also for us women, that we're going to lead the public space and we are not going to ask for permission or forgiveness. Thank you very much. And let's move on. Very good morning to you all. Welcome to this Global Progressive Mobilization, which is a clear example of what we are set to do. Get together, unite, in a moment in which we are fighting against those extreme speeches of the world. We have a new General Secretary, Aránzazu, that will take power on May 31st at the Partido de Juventudes Socialistas de España. And leadership is an exercise of unity, all together here, happy and with a lot of enthusiasm in a moment which is a key in history. Because right now, all those fascists, people who have always been hiding or voting for the Partido Popular, and they will tell us that we need to really surrender, and we really need to get together, all the progressive forces of this country, and tell them that the government that will represent social democrats, or maybe people who do not feel like social democrats, but that feel that Pedro Sánchez is a strong leader, able, capable to face challenges and implement changes. And let me remind you, and I know I need to be brief, but today is the anniversary of 120 years ago, 17th of April, that the Juventudes Socialistas de España held their first Congress, the Constitutional Congress of the Juventudes Socialistas de España, an organization. I see people, veterans from the movement, some of us who've already retired from the Youth Socialists, but brothers and sisters who were able to build this alliance, and thank also the Catalonian Socialists for this work, Laura, because what's coming, what's the future is always better, because we know from the past and we can learn how to face the challenges that we have. In moments in which these far-right people say that we cannot do anything about housing, of course we can have an impact on housing. Those who say that we cannot do anything about the conflicts in the Middle East, of course we can stop that. That these men who say that feminisms are way out of their place, we will tell them that no. We have a panel here with very good friends, Alan, Juan, and Sarah. Sarah fighting behind the screens and, of course, always waving the progressive flag in order to tell these fascist forces that we are useful for the present and ready for the future, and they will never be able to say that we were not on the right side of history. Thank you, and let's move forward. I need to introduce now the three members of the panel, but I'm sure that all of you know them very, very well. But very briefly, Sara Santaolalla, she's a political analyst with a huge impact in social networks. She's known because she's very clear and she's one of the most influential voices in the media horizon and political analyst. Alan Barroso, political analyst and creator of digital content, specialized in explaining political and media situation with a pedagogical approach. And Ahmoud, he is a content creator and also famous for his tweets. Let's start with the first round of questions, and because who are you? Introduce yourselves, and when did you decide that you wanted to really stand up against the far right? Because the far right try to demonize us. They try to avoid conversation, dialogue. They decide to use these deep fakes in the social network, people that hide behind deep profiles, attacking any free space for negotiation. I think it is more and more important to be able to know what's really moving us when trying to have an impact. It's a pleasure for me. Thank you for the invitation back in Barcelona, a city I love really very much. And it's important because today the main fight is not the daily insults, but what we have outside our countries is not migrants, it's people of orange color that are terrorizing the world, and more and more, ever and ever. When I started being active in social networks, I particularly thought it was political socializing. I studied political sciences in Barcelona, and with the old university books, we learned that social mobilization was learned in school, work, or family. If you belong to a socialist family, normally your children would also become members of the Socialist Party. If you had some teacher who was from the red side of the war, would tell you that part of that analysis, that approach from the war. But now children in the metro, in the streets, they are always connected to their portable devices and or at home with the television sets, and people are saying what they think about the world, and people are really plugged into social networks, so we don't no longer need to read the wonderful trees or the, books or those television programs in which there were really interesting, deep political debates. No, we need to use the way people get informed now, and it is the portable devices, the social networks. So I decided to start using those means of communication, social networks, and people say, I think that what you're saying is really bad. We were not very good at the beginning. We didn't manage to master the new communication tools, but we learned, we trained, and at the end of the day, it is worth starting. It was 6 or 7 years ago when I started using the social networks, and it is clear that when you really believe in that, when you really invest yourself in that, you have good results, and it works. It works. Sara? Very good morning, bon dia. I was thinking on how to start because I have a lot of energy. Maybe very early in the morning I'm a tough person, but I see that there is a cheerful time. This is not early in the morning. No, it is early in the morning for Abascal. And for fascism, we need to fight against them. Right now, I'm sure Abascal is still in bed. First of all, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I love Barcelona. I love being around, surrounded by engaged people, committed people. And these past few weeks, I need to wear caps and glasses, and just for people not to recognize me in the street. But here, I don't have to hide behind any disguise because you all know me. I work mainly in mass media. Digitally, I do what I can. It's like a cactus at home. Sometimes you take care of it, but you know that it doesn't need much care. So very often when I publish tweets, it's somehow a scandal every time. So I try not to use that very much. But when people ask me, why do you do that? I said, this is how I've been for all my life. You have principles, and those principles, you have them from your childhood, at the university, when you start working, when you actively engage in associations, in social movements, and when you work in a media communication. And my principles have always been part of me whenever I was at a local radio station or when I was working as a lifeguard at a summer swimming pool, or when you are every day on a very important television program with a large audience. And it is important that you never ever forget your principles. And today that we sometimes also make mistakes, and sometimes many people go about with deep fakes, but I will never lie, but I will make mistakes. But people clearly tell lies on television, like saying that the VAT for books is 21% when it is actually 4%. But it is extremely important to be present in these mass media channels because it's full of rubbish. It's not the social networks, also on the main TV channels in which people are comparing somebody who thinks that the earth is flat with a real researcher, a real scientific person, that people media that do not understand that people who are harassed, that has not to really sit at the same table in front of a large audience with the person who's harassing him. So these are principles that have been accompanying me, which have been part of me for all my life. I am on the spot, on an every day, and I have always refused to legitimate fascist violence. And I have always respected whatever women, migrants, LGBTI people, trans people have to say, because the other side are really attacking these people, and from the first to my last day, principles to the front. You sleep better even if you make less money.
A ver, yo creo que soy un poco
I think I'm somehow different because I'm not on television. I don't think I will ever be on television. It's not where I feel more comfortable. And I think that the difference between what I do, which is tweets, but I am rather an individual who chairs or moderates a conversation, dialogue on different topics. And from my perspective, it's not just trying to put across clear messages but rather something which is a problem in general. We want to create spaces, places where people who are progressive or maybe not can come to a place in which they feel comfortable, because it is that when one feels comfortable really is open to understand other people's ideas. And the main reason why one person or other may have different ideas, and I think because of the really extreme way media are imposing the different positions of the far right, people very often when they see all that rubbish on the media, they do not trust the system. They do not trust the public administration. They do not trust the collective. So why is it that we've managed to make people not to trust? And this is why people who do not trust are ready to buy anything that people would use social networks to have an influence on them. What can we do in order to reform, to change that situation? Because at the end of the day, the collective is not just about communication, it's just about an attitude. If you feel expelled, if you feel that you're not protected from whatever side, you cannot tell them, just come. You need to be with them. You need to accompany them, to let them know that you worry about them, not just who tells them that you But I am against this huge gap between one side and the other.
Vale, entonces me callo. No, pero yo creo que no hay polarización. Creo que nos están intentando decir que hay polarización, que nos lo están introduciendo hasta en el menú. Aquí, oye, podemos estar
There is no too far extreme different positions, polarization. And polarization means that it's just two sides to the same thing, but when one side, the fascist side, goes up to the president of the Congress and threatens him, when the president of the regional government calls son of a bitch the president of the government, when you see that one side is insulting, deep faking, and the others are trying to stand for their principles, this is not just a polarization, two sides, but there are means and companies and businesses, banks, electric companies that prefer the media to say that there is a violent environment rather than saying that there is one side that is really telling lies and attacking and another side that is just defending. I think that this situation started like that 20 or 30 years ago when the mass media started losing their own systems of financing and the big capitals came to buy the largest media. And I think that polarization is a consequence of when people feel they cannot trust the structure where they live, because what they're trying to do is try and find a place to live, a place to exist, a place to belong to. And this is partly why we're here. When the system is not able to create consensus, there is polarization, because people cannot allow themselves to wait and see. People want to live properly, and they are looking for solutions, and this is why we really have to look at the U.S. Donald Trump gets to power because he is addressing a group of people who feel expelled from the system, who do not trust the system anymore. And what Trump is doing is taking advantage of these people who are isolated and convincing them that they belong to a new movement. And this is where polarization is born, but because of the different political battles in Spain, the mass media, both public and private, that there is a battle going on. And if people cannot believe in the news, it is difficult they believe in anything, because where did you get your information from? Okay, I will try to get in this, because this is what we wanted to clarify about this, because at the end of the day we're talking about how we tell things. There is a way to tell things that's try to be based on evidence and data and reality, and there is another way to inform which is based on deep fakes and violence and 1 minute tweet posts. So there is a difference between political education and having just a space in the social networks. What is better, that we try to explain what public policies are having a good benefit on people, or just reaching out to millions of people with deep fakes? But you really, when you are in the public spot, you're really able to convey that message in a very good way, very communicative way, that we, the politicians, are not able to do. Alan, how can we manage to be educational in our political action and at the same time have an impact? Is it possible or is it not possible? And I think we have made, the progressive organizations have been making the same mistake, and we thought that when somebody was shouting at us, we had to come up with clear data evidence. No, but people say, I cannot sleep at night, I am about to lose my job, people are not feeling well, you cannot just show them a data set. When you talk about hunger in the world, it's not the same thing to think of 1 million people in Hungary, or that you see a picture of a baby about to die, because an image has a lot of impact. Is this the same information quality? No. A clear data which is based on evidence audience is very interesting, but you don't convince large audiences. So we need to learn that that was a mistake that we made for many, many years. People who tried to think that you can only give the people real data, Excel, spreadsheets, and no. We need to be able to just to counterbalance what the far right proposes, we need to be able to be rigorous and be evidence-based. We need to be able to accept that we are fucked up. How will we react to that? How do we convince people we have the solutions? What John said before about Trump, he was right when he said to the working class in the U.S., you've been abandoned. The Democrat administration gave more benefits to the millionaires than to the working class. The U.S. companies relocated to another countries, and so he blamed on the poor, the Chinese, the Mexicans. Exactly what we saw here, that they were really putting the violence on those who are not like you, people who are your neighbors. And the orange multimillionaires that are in power in the United States are not your neighbors. He pretends to be speaking on behalf of who? He's talking on behalf of the rich and the powerful. Our reaction must be that we are able to give a realistic, true answer. And I don't... Unfortunately, many things that are happening in Spain and Europe happens before in the United States, which is the big laboratory. And the Orange movement, the MAGA movement in the United States came across the ocean to Europe in the green color of the fascist parties. And now we are seeing that they were telling but lies. They are full of lies. They are full of shit. And they were giving data that was not right, deep fakes. And now, finally, there are people in Europe that is able to stand up. And we say that we are not going to be silent anymore. And we're going to point at those who are really those who to be blamed for the situation and the suffering of so many people, as it is the example of the mayor of New York. And you see that this is the task that we must implement, and we'll manage to do it, but we are learning, but we are, of course, in the right place at the right time.
En este sentido, en Twitch tus debates son más en directo y, por tanto, las respuestas, las reacciones...
You are always live on TV, and conflicts and reactions are live on TV. Is it a space where you can really debate and discuss, or what you do is a real discussion? Discussing is an act of willingness and being patient and being able to listen. When you talk to somebody who's sending messages in a chat, when you are speaking on the microphone, rather than discussing, you're trying to make people understand what you're trying to say. So when you communicate, what you're trying to do is to make people understand you, and this is one of the examples. One of the Mangani's most known videos is he standing at a corner talking to people in the streets and say, I vote Trump, but I like you. Mangani is the mayor of New York. It is not people thinking like you, but being in a space in which people, and more people around you that are really worried about the problems of the people. Why he won the elections? Because they have a group of people walking the streets, talking to people, getting close to people, showing people they are not alone. And it is very important. Institutions are very important, but the rule of law will not work unless there are groups in the neighborhoods those that are the grassroots mobilization, because it is when people that sees politics as something very far away and hears politics in their neighborhood, very close to them, when you do this educational action, this is what Magnani did in New York, this is where people feel comfortable. So he, this mayor of New York, didn't win the elections because he communicated better in the or saying things against the other side, but rather showing people that they were listened to, that they were important for them. People who would vote for Trump and that tomorrow will vote for Magnani, for the option that shows them that they can sleep better and that things are going to be better.
Sara, nos gustaría escuchar también tu opinión en...
Sara, we would love to hear your opinion about this. Do you think we really need to be clear against those narratives of hate of the other side? We've seen that in the past few months. You've been really harassed, attacked with a lot of deep fake against you physically. Really, how are you? What is that having an impact in your daily life, in your personal life? Is that giving you more strength, or you're thinking that it's not worth doing it? I will try and be very brief. This is not about colors. This is not about green and orange and all that. No, 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 no. This is not about M&Ms. I don't fully agree with you. I think that the communication strategy, and that is your specialty, needs to be changed. But I don't think we should ever forget evidence-based data. Sometimes the small blackboard, that old tool of the old teachers, is good, because when you are right, you are on the side of the truth. When you are right, it's because you are on the side of the truth. And to be on the side of the truth, that must be evidence-based, with the work that you do to find out the reality. The far-right narrative is very short, long life Spain, long life United States, make America great again, and that's all. And they do not go to reality. They do not research. They try to generate a battle and confront poor people against poor people, say that when we have problems in our cities, in order to rent an apartment, they try to pretend that it is not these funds that come making money, but they rather say that it's because migrants have come to your neighborhood. So they're trying to confront poor with poor, when we know that the public health care system is under threat, and they say because there is no money, it's because there are more migrant people coming from abroad.
And basically the same people are told to be illegal immigrants, but if you try to understand their lie makes no sense, because in the end it will make no sense with the comparison between illegal migrants and access to health care. This is a different topic, but we need to speak about all this. When I have been attacked by fake news, by lies, so I believe that our message needs to change. The message that is reaching the young people is reaching them via tweet or social networks and not proper media, even though young people are watching TV again. Many digital youngsters and then many social networks use TV programs and the other way around. If something is a trend topic on social network, it will always be on TV as well. So we must be different, because they, the left, the right, sorry, they will dare to say anything. This week in Spain, with the regularization of illegal migrants, so many lies have been told, and we cannot try to be like them. We need to explain to everyone how those are lies. We need to say that's a lie, and we need to insist So yes, we need to be quick, we need to have brief messages for young people whose future is at stake. And I agree with Juan, by the way. When people don't feel protected, people eventually are attracted to negationism, to extreme political positions, because they say they're going to save their lives, but they just fuck their lives. So I do not think that we should lose the truth and the information, but we shouldn't be too boring, we shouldn't be too dull.
Contesta, por favor.
But when you spoke about explaining that something is untrue, we keep doing that. We spend 24 hours a day doing that. We are at the defensive. Once we are at the offensive, but most of the time we are at the defensive. I wish one day I said something and right-wing parties would say, oh, look what the leftists are saying. We're always shocked. They are almost never shocked. So we should have proposals that change the situation. In the past, we had, and we'll have it again, a situation like that. But we're just like a boxer who keeps defending himself. So what they say about migrants is not true, what they say about women is not true. We're exhausted trying to explain how lies are lies, and they're very good at lying. So we need to give a different image. We need to present an idea that is stronger than the ideas of the right. And they say, Viva España, patriotism is great for them. I wish I could say Viva España. I wish I could be patriotic as well. I am also proud to be Spanish, not just them, not just the right, but just repeating words. The same thing with the flag. They use the Spanish flag, and you see a Spanish flag and you're scared. I'll tell you an anecdote, something that happened once. I was walking and I saw two really big guys with a face mask. It was during COVID, and their face mask had the Spanish flag. They were getting closer. I was quite scared. They came and they were speaking English. They were just tourists. But I was scared because I saw two big blokes with a Spanish flag, and I thought, I'm so fed up with being scared when I see the flag of my own country. For fuck's sake, that flag represents us as well, but for 40 years it represented something really bad, the dictatorship. But that flag was designed in the 19th century by progressive forces, and now we speak about King Ferdinand VII. But let's remember that in the 19th century, that flag represented democracy against absolutism by the royal family. And now, why do they choose the Spanish flag? They also wave the Israeli flag. They love it. Right-wing parties love the Israeli flag. The same thing with the Spanish army. They think the Spanish army is theirs. We should say that's also our country, also our army. They are basically saying American first, but they're not from America. They're from a Spanish town like Teruel. Don't offend me because I am from there. I am from that region. Well, joking aside, I have two comments. Firstly, I do agree that we are always one step back, because we always explain that something is a lie, and it's not the same thing as attacking. We're always defending ourselves. It's so boring to try and explain week after week what the right-wing parties say. They have more money, of course. There's a case at the courts called the Kitchen case, a corruption case, and that's basically a whole project to cover corruption, including the ex-president of the government and high-position leaders of the Conservatives. But nobody wants to speak about Kitchen because they have more power and more money, and they organize the public discussion. We spend too much time in denying the lies, and we do not argue ourselves. But I get really sad when I get something by WhatsApp. I see a WhatsApp status, and then somebody says, did you know that Pedro Sanchez stole 7 cats, blah, blah, blah. And then you click on that link, and usually I reply to the person that sent me the message, And then I said, well, obviously that journalist is not telling the truth. Of course, I'm not going to film a whole video about that, but we need to be more offensive and less defensive. And then again, let's speak about the Spanish flag. We have the most submissive right-wing party. We have Netanyahu and Trump, and they're so submissive. The right is so submissive in a country when we see the killing of children in the Middle East and they cannot denounce it. Thousands of children are being burned in Palestine. During the Eurovision Song Contest, they said, I'll vote for Israel, I don't care about their song. So that's the way they are. But they're also bad people. Let's say that they are people. You need to be a really bad person, that man and that woman, to, during a massacre, during a war, during the killing of innocent people, enjoy that war, wear a T-shirt, drink a cup of tea, and hang a medal. I agree with Barroso. We need to make the Spanish flag our own. I've had the same feeling. I was walking outside and I saw a guy, you know, who looked like a posh Spanish conservative guy, and I thought, he's seen me on TV, he's going to insult me, he's going to abuse me, so why the hell should our Spanish flag represent hatred? And those people, why isn't it our flag? Why don't we have the Spanish flag here? Please, let's have the Spanish flag here at this event. So I agree with you. I do agree with you. And can I answer to the other question? Do you mind? I know you're suffering. The moderator is suffering. This is the worst event she's ever moderated. But we'll continue this conversation outside. But let me just say this last thing. We spoke about this just before when you said that, you know, you're tough when you speak. I was speaking to Alan and Juan and saying, the people look at what I say with a magnifying glass, with much more attention than on other women and other men. This is not criticism, but nobody ever speaks about how Barroso speaks, for example, Barroso being Alan Barroso, who's here. But people do speak about how tough I am, if I'm too harsh. That's what happens when you're a woman. People never say that a man is too harsh when he's participating in a public discussion. Nobody says that they sound aggressive, their tone. I am going to be aggressive and harsh because that's what I want to do. And at this time in our world, we need to be harsh. We cannot be moderate. We cannot go to war wearing flip-flops. We cannot think that just by staying here we're going to survive. So the current situation is a source of pain, and because we're entre nous here, I think that obviously we're all suffering. I'm suffering like a dog. I'm not going to say suffering like a bitch because that will be on the media tomorrow. But we are suffering a lot. We're reaching high levels of suffering. Day after day, I feel like the boy or girl who is bullied at school. I don't want to leave my house. I don't want to see some people. I don't want to go to school like the child who's bullied. But in the evening, at night, I reflect and I think, no, I still have to go to school tomorrow. I still have to work. I need to denounce what's happening. Because all of us, all the members of this panel, we can still denounce what's happening. I understood the current situation when I received the first message of a woman who adopted a child who had a group of friends, but because now they are fans of Abascal, the right-wing party, he's now being bullied at school because he's not white. That boy who was adopted and had friends in the past, but not anymore. And then the mother thanked me for my message, brought the child to TV to meet me. Well, then I understand that my job means something. Some people do not have the possibility to speak publicly. Of course, they don't have the stress that we have, but some people come from other countries to Spain. They have huge difficulties that I've never had. So clearly, difficult times for freedom of expression. We're living difficult times for those of us who do not want to resign, to rest, to give up. difficult times for women particularly. All of us women shared something in 2026, which is that there's a report that says that all of us have been called bitch, whore, at least once in their lives. There's a difference between me and my male colleagues. They would never say, oh, you're there because you blew somebody's cock, you're there because you had sex with somebody. And they keep telling this to us, and they will still say that about us women. They will never speak about our quality as journalists or influencers. They will not speak about our arguments. They will only criticize our reputation. They try to stop our ideas and our arguments because of our boobs. Well, I'm glad to have boobs, and I'm glad to have ideas as well.
Gracias, Sara.
Well, thank you, Sara. You're completely right. Can I ask you to be a bit more disciplined in the last round? Can we have just one message? Well, of course you're right. We need to be powerful and intense, but we need to be pragmatic and understand how we can convey our message. And today's event should be a training event so that we are even better on social networks. So give me just one key for success on social networks to defend democracy and progressive ideas on social networks, media, and everyday life. We need to get back civil society organizations, activism. The Green Party is doing that. Mandani is doing that in New York. If we are not in touch with the people again, we'll never get our message across. We're trying to focus on political marketing. We need to communicate better. We'll never have an impact on somebody's life unless, when they tell you their problems, they know who you are. Fake news don't matter, but you need to be there. You need to be near those people. They need to know you so they won't sue you. But organizations have lost that space. All of us working for public institutions or media, we know that it's not the same to speak from an institution than to speak from the civil society organizations. Both are necessary, but we need to remember the importance of civil society organizations. We need to strengthen what we've done in the past 30 years. We need to strengthen our message by remembering that 100 years ago, all workers across the world united, because there was one trade union present in every neighborhood, in every street, in every house. When you have that, it doesn't matter if people tell fake news about you. If they lie about somebody, I'll know it's not true. Thank you. Alan, can you be just as brief? I completely agree with what Juan just said. Let's speak about Canada and the strikes there at the time, and they managed to have a 40-hour week. We need to be more open our arms. Something wonderful is happening in the world now. This is the seed, even more than a seed, like a small plant of an organization, even an ethical organization, what we can have from the Pope in Rome to the Socialist Spanish Party to Giorgia Meloni. Anyone who is against basic things like war, like crime. So basically, we all defend common sense. Again, it's just a seed, it's just a small plant, but it can become a huge tsunami in the future. Clearly, there's a global coalition being created. So again, from the Chinese Communist Party to the Pope, who represents 1.3 billion Christians in the world, it is possible that if we're all open, if we open our arms, we will move from just killing the weak to accepting everyone. But of course, we need to understand that in this, let's say, platform, there are people that we disagree with in almost everything. But even if we have one thing in common, we'll achieve great things. The current situation is terrible, but the future is even worse, with huge technocrats that can send a message telling you this current government is criminal, social networks sell our data. Those who were scared about the 20th century problems should be scared about multinational companies now and technological companies. Thank you for being brief. Sara, can you be very brief, extremely brief? Of course, I promise. Nobody believes that I can be brief. Joking aside, I want to thank all of you. Thank you. It's been great. It's been great. We'll continue with this conversation, having a beer at the bar. I think that the main message is that things are not incompatible. After the pandemic, we lost the contact with the people on the street. We lost neighborhood associations, trade unions, people that were mobilized. Nobody was really interested in people not making ends meet. People knew somebody in, I don't know, neighborhood organization, trade union, but that doesn't happen anymore. We're not in the streets anymore. We need to go back to that. And we need to get back social movements that are stronger. We need to have a generational change, a new generation, young people that participate in social movements. I am very thankful for what retired people are doing in Spain. We'll always have to thank them. Well, we need to help them as well. We need to be with them. We need to support them in their struggle. We cannot leave them alone, because if they win, we win. And this needs to come back to being on the street, trade unions, speak face-to-face to normal people. And we need to understand the digital world, our speeches. We need to hug people, we need to touch people. We need to defend common sense, and we shouldn't give up if we are right. We cannot shut up if we're right, and we cannot get tired of being right, because when we're right, and this is something that happened a year ago with the case of Giselle Pelicot, the fear that went from one end to the other. I think that they also need to be scared, and they should be embarrassed. We cannot give up when bad people denounce us. Being a good person, being honest, being against fascism should be the rule in this country and in the world. Well, thank you. I want to thank the three of you. It's been a very rich discussion. And then basically, to wrap up, let's remember what we're doing today and tomorrow, the direct impact that these meetings are having on democracy. Because yes, public opinion is key, but that narrative needs to reach people. If we do not reach people, the right will do it. And this will have an impact on public debate, but also on coexistence, social cohesion, and we are the only ones that can manage progressive forces. So thank you, and let's continue working.
Llama a su amiga, le dice que este verano es pa' beber. Solo quiere salir y de nadie depender. Hasta que me conoció, ella no se lo esperaba. La vi entrando en la disco, me devolvió la mirada. Sonrisita nerviosa, entre besos se enfadaba. Se le escapó un te quiero a la que no quería nada. Hasta que me conoció, ella no se lo esperaba. La vi entrando en la disco, me devolvió la mirada. Sonrisita nerviosa, entre besos se enfadaba. Se le escapó un te quiero a la que no quería nada. Bebé, los dos sabemos que es verano y que tal vez cuando termine agosto no nos volvemos a ver. Pero quiero tener algo para cuando no esté. Así que acumulemos recuerdos cada vez que el labio te muerdo, me empuja y me pega a la pared, mirándonos fijamente como en una última vez. Sé que estudiar la usa y me usa su merced, bebé, sé que le tiene mucho miedo al compromiso. Y yo también quiero olvidarme, óyame. Si eso te ayuda, pero me entra en duda, porque sé que solo tú te ríes mientras chingamos en el cuarto a poca luz. Nos echamos la última copa y ya le cuide su salud. Y eso que es sentimental nunca ha sido su actitud. Hasta que me conoció, ella no se lo esperaba. La vi entrando en la disco, me devolvió la mirada. Sonrisita nerviosa, entre besos se enfadaba. Se le escapó un te quiero a la que no quería nada. Estoy reviviendo todo lo que hicimos este verano. la playa de la mano, los besos sin te amo, haciéndolo hasta tarde para levantarnos temprano. Cantaba mi tema mientras yo tocaba el piano. La isla se hizo pequeña cada vez que nos miramos, escuchando reggaetón a 180 cualquier tramo. Ella se va pero espero que